Hi everyone, welcome to the first chapter in elementary statistics, chapter 1, picturing distributions with graphs. So this video is just an introduction to that chapter. In this chapter we are going to be taking a look at a few things about data, and specifically we're going to be looking at individuals and variables. So we'll be taking a look at what is an individual when we're talking about data and what is the variable in there. When we get into variables, we're going to break these into two parts. We're going to look at categorical variables as well as quantitative. So we'll be looking at what is a categorical variable and how is it different than a quantitative variable. Especially, we will be looking at how we can graph these two types of variables. With categorical variables, we're going to be looking at pie charts and bar graphs. Bar graphs are really easy to mistake for the graph that is a graph of a quantitative variable, and that is going to be a histogram. So we're going to really have to notice the difference between these two, between the bar graph and the histogram. We're going to work on interpreting, we're going to work a lot with the histograms then. We're going to work on interpreting these histograms, being able to look at the shape and what that means. We're going to work with something very similar to that, which is a stem plot. And then finally, we are going to finish up by looking at time plots of variables. So those are the few things that we're going to be taking a look at in chapter 1. So in this first one, let's go ahead and take a look right away at what is individuals and variables. So when we're taking a look at this, an individual really is the object that we are going to be studying. All right, so when we think about a study, a lot of times we're going to see things kind of broken up into kind of tables. So an example of that would be a table like this. Here are the objects that we're studying. These are the individuals. All right, in this chart we have, Old Indy Storm Chief, Catafires Wind, Winier, and Coming Up Slow. These are all horse names, as you can tell by the very strange names that we give horse. I think I'm going to name my first child Catafires Wind. So Catafires Wind Johnson. But these are the individuals that we are going to be studying. So when we talk about variables, everything else after that, all the things over here, these are our variables. The reason they're called variables is because they can change. Not every horse is the same breed. Not every horse has the same selling price. Not every horse belongs to the same stable. So that is the idea when we're taking a look at individuals and variables. So when we set something up like this, a lot of times we're going to be working with these. This is what's commonly known as a spreadsheet. We'll be using some software such as Excel and Google Sheets in order to organize information into a spreadsheet like that, and it's going to help us really break down this information and kind of organize it in a way that's easy for us to read. But it's not always organized in such a way that it's easy for us to interpret. So a spreadsheet just lists all the information, and that's why we want to really work on picturing this stuff with graphs and charts. So one of the things before we go, when we're planning a study, it's really important for us to think about really the same things that we've learned whenever we're asking questions. You probably remember these from your elementary language classes: who, what, when, where, why, or in this order: where, when, why. Especially these first two. What individuals? That's the who. Individuals, yeah. And then the what, these are going to be the variables. So when we were planning this last study that we were, just saw over here, these were the who. Who are we going to be studying, and then what are we going to be studying about them? So very simply, the individuals and the variables. The where is going to be the context. So the idea is the context of data collection. Where you collect your data is always important. If you're asking things from people in the South versus people in the North, you're asking a school that is made up of freshmen and sophomores, or a school that's made up of juniors and seniors, or I suppose more commonly would be like a junior high or a senior high school. When is the same thing. We're looking for context. When was this study done? And why? Is the data that you're collecting just to describe the individuals? Or is the data that you are collecting done to represent an entire group? So a lot of times we see this in polls. We poll people as a representation of an entire group of people instead of asking every single person. We're just trying to get an idea for everyone there. The next thing that we need to remember when we're talking about individuals and variables is going to be the types of variable. There are two types. One type of variable is a categorical, as represented here by the breed of the horse. This is a categorical variable. You are either a thoroughbred or you're not. You're an Arabian or you're not. So you fall into one of these categories. Whereas this variable is a quantitative variable. A lot of people, quantitative variable. A lot of people recognize quantity as being a number. So this one over here again falls into the categorical variable. And it's important for us to recognize the difference because remember, the way that we graph these things is going to be different. Categorical variables we might graph with a pie chart or a bar graph, whereas the quantitative variable we're going to graph with a histogram, which is going to look a lot like that bar graph when we start working at that. So really important for us to understand just those basic parts of a variable. So in our next lesson, we're going to be taking a look at how can I graph some variables. We're going to talk about distributions. We're going to talk about pie charts and bar graphs, specifically graphing categorical variables.